All right, we are live. Hello, everyone. My name is Joshua Gilliland. I'm one of the founding attorneys of the Legal Geeks. With me is Thomas Harper, a true Star Wars expert. Tom, how you doing tonight?
That's the belt that says that I'm the true Star Wars expert. I'm just a person with an affliction that stuff rattles around in my brain that really only has very limited importance to most people, but it's okay. I'm good. It's Sunday. I hate that we only have one more week of Boba Fett, but I think we'll get more Boba Fett in this last episode, but yeah, it's good.
Yeah, we should focus on the law, but yes, I enjoyed the starting as a big character study of Boba Fett. And then we were reminded Star Wars is a big universe with lots
This is true.
happening. And
This is true.
I do want to get back to the world that he's trying to build. So highlights that we'll probably see him in Ahsoka. So I wouldn't be surprised, but we should not forget that we should have a Star Wars TV show each quarter.
Yes.
So we're in a. If you told 7-year-old me that this was the world we were going to have, I don't think I would have believed you. So
That guy that I saw on screen for 2 minutes is getting his own TV show? No way.
lies. Lies. That guy from the parade in San Anselmo, crazy talk. So
Yeah.
so let's jump into this.
Yeah.
This episode has a lot. I mean, it's almost on par with Solo being packed full of legal issues because there a
Right.
lot happens here. And the name of the episode is "From the Desert Comes a Stranger," which is so Western. It's on point for this series.
Right.
And we have what looks like a drug deal in Plain View. It's Cobb Vance, who is the marshal in Mos Pelgo. We see a land speeder, and on the hood of the land speeder is the was it Camtano that's open with money clearly in it, and a little box that he can't see inside of, and he makes a comment that he can't see inside of it.
Right.
This looks like a drug deal. So and it's a wonderful way to talk about Plain View.
Yes.
Tom, can you help us understand what Plain View is for those who have not enjoyed the wonders of law school?
Yes, criminal procedure, the wonderful world of it. So there are all sorts of ways for the police in the real world to go about searching your things. The way in which we're most used to is a search warrant. They have certain reasons to go ask the judge, baseline of evidence, and they're granted a warrant to officially search you. Otherwise, another pretty common one that you see pretty often is just consent search. They ask and you say yes, foolishly or otherwise. I don't know. But there are some other ways that police can go about sort of expanding their normal interaction with you, go about expanding what they're able to look at. And one of those is the plain view doctrine, right? So they have eyeballs, they're people, they're investigators, and just because something is in your car, in some place that you consider to be private, doesn't mean that they can't see it. So here you have a really suspicious set of circumstances. They're out in the middle of nowhere amongst the moisture evaporators that are, I guess, like Tatooine's trees these days. And it's Pikes who are up to no good in the Mos Pelgo neighborhood. And the tricky thing here is that so plain view revolves around the observation of plainly viewable, like plainly observable illegal activity. So you get pulled over for rolling a stop sign and you've got your handy dandy like bag of cocaine sitting on the passenger seat. Police officer sees it, bam, spaghettios for you. And it turns into a larger search of your car, you're detained, yada yada. Here you have an open Camtono of credits, and you have a case, and then you have some roughneck pikes, but the spice that they're actually dealing in is not actually visible. There's stuff happening in plain view, but it's not patently illegal, at least as I watched the episode. So uh he rolls up, Cobb Vanth does, and makes some assumptions about what's happening here. There appears the pikes aren't from around here. We don't, I know folks in Mos Pelgo. I know what the likes of you pikes do, and I'm gonna connect the dots and assume you're doing something nefarious here. He makes a comment about how they probably thought that they were, out where nobody would find them. And that's not how plain view works. You don't get to connect dots and say, you look a certain way. I bet there's illegal activity happening that I can see, therefore I can search more. He takes it a couple steps too far.
I actually have a different point of view on this, and that
Mhm.
goes from let's first understand plain view and the difference between racially profiling pikes. So, because there are two different issues at play. So, the Plain View Doctrine is a Supreme Court made legal doctrine dating back to 1927. And it says the police are free to observe circumstances and evidence that are in the plain view to the public. It's been held up in case law for the last 95 years. And if the police officer is in a place where they can legally be and they see something going on, that's not a search. It doesn't violate the Fourth Amendment. So, breaking down the facts here and what Cobb Vanth says to the Pikes is important. Let's focus on what he can see. He can see the credits and he can see a box on the hood of a car. That could be suspicious just from the way that it's set up. And the comments he makes are no laws are broken as far as I'm concerned, and then makes the threat at the end as this conversation goes on. Anyone lost in Mos Pelgo will be lost forever, saying, don't come back dealing spice in my territory. So I think from what he's seeing, he can have a reasonable suspicion that something is up, that these individuals are not from here.
Sure.
What they are doing is indicative of a drug deal. And he doesn't say you're under arrest. He doesn't try to arrest them. He says, leave. And it's after one of the Pikes goes for his gun that he shoots 3 out of the 4 of them.
Yes.
With lightning speed and precision, showing he might be the fastest or one of the fastest guns on definitely Tatooine, possibly this period of the Star Wars universe. So I don't think he takes it too far.
That's fair.
Because again, he sees they're also armed. Like just from the totality of the circumstances, you could go, this doesn't look okay. And I'm going to intercede. And he doesn't have the gun drawn. He tries to.
Doesn't need to.
Doesn't need to because he's fast. And that's my view, that I think everything is okay. I also think that the use of force is justified because for police officers to use force, they can use it in self-defense. And he was not the one that went for the weapon first. We have the Pike turn his back. He can see the R movement, that the guy's going for his gun to spin around, and that's when Cobb dispatches them. So anything to add to that?
No, I don't think he went too far. I think if he had attempted to use plain view and connect the dots, I think that would have been a step too far. So I think you're absolutely right. The way that he gets to the end of this confrontation is completely fair. But plain view doesn't mean that my only point was that plain view doesn't extend a police officer's ability to connect dots. So I think there's probably something illicit in that glove box or on that box on the floor. Therefore, I can kick it open and look in there. He clearly didn't have that. That's a great line to bring up about, hey, as far as I'm concerned, the laws are broken here. Subtext being, I know that laws are being broken right here. I'm not a fool, but
yeah,
yeah.
this doesn't look right on so many levels because this is not normal interaction that
I
happens here.
I do wonder whether, because there's this great line later on about Cobb Vanth saying that he's been more careful recently because he doesn't have Boba's armor anymore. And I wonder what this confrontation would have looked like with the Mandalorian armor on if if suddenly he does go too far and just like pumps a wrist rocket into the whole speeder. Who knows?
And satisfying. I like the he does seize the spice, even though he doesn't know that it's spice. I think we have because of the shootout that takes place. This is on one level you could say it's kind of a post. Normally there'd be search incident of arrest. This is search incident of a gunfight. So
Right.
a crime was committed. I think taking the contraband is legally justified because he knows it's contraband of some kind. He probably suspects it's spice, but he doesn't outright say so. And then when he sees it's spice, he kicks it over. I mean, they haven't talked about what spice does for those who take it, but it probably rips through a community with the same horror as crack cocaine. So
Yeah,
the
it's well established as a like in other materials as a highly addictive substance. So I think you're spot on there. I also like the level of judgment that Cobb exercises on the back end of all this after he blasts the three of them, because law enforcement operations in the real world do this sort of thing all the time, not necessarily to send a message or whatever, but there's an amount of judgment here in letting the fourth one go. Could he have been arrested? Are there grounds for that in the real world? Absolutely. Was it perhaps the right move to do that here to arrest him? No, because otherwise the Pikes just assume that who knows what happened. Don't know if law enforcement was involved. Now he sends a message that there's a the strong arm of the law actually does extend out to the wasteland of Tatooine, and this area, the area of his jurisdiction, is not to be trifled with. So I thought that was pretty smart, kind of neat to see. You don't get to see a lot of law enforcement happening in Star Wars, and I think Cobb Vanth's sort of a cool example of it.
agreed. It also works well. And normally I would say if you're out in the desert, you should be wearing a hat to protect yourself from the double UV. But if you have hair that amazing,
Yeah, you
of
don't cover
course
that
you're
up.
gonna
No,
he doesn't no, you're not
yeah, let those locks fly.
it has to be an example to others of it's magnificent. So which brings us to the scene that you didn't think we were going to get, and I was stunned we got it.
Yeah,
We go to the Jedi Temple under construction. There is so much that happens there, but let's talk about if you are building a boarding school, which I think is the best way to describe a Jedi Academy. They're doing it very old fashioned. So there doesn't seem to be running water, insulation. And I looked up the health and safety requirements for boarding schools in California to see if Luke's academy is in anywhere near in compliance. And the answer is a resounding no. For example, there are no carbon monoxide detection devices, and that's required under the California Education Code. You need to have a concussion protocol for student athletes. And while there isn't a Jedi lacrosse team,
he's out there
there
doing front flips with Grogu in the backpack. you know,
Yeah, it's like,
probably
so there's
slightly clipped in. I don't know. There's some danger there.
there's clearly danger there. So like they need to have a concussion protocol for if someone gets blasted and hit in the head, that they are able to make sure they get a CT scan and that they don't have any, brain injuries.
Right.
Yeah, everyone has to be immunized for a whole bunch of things. And I mean, like measles, mumps, uh, tuberculosis, hepatitis B, chicken pox. I mean, it's a long list of vaccinations in California. You also need to be compliant with the earthquake code, and that's just some of the things that are on the list. This is like what we see at Octu, that it's a stone room. How
Right.
much protection do you get against the elements with that? I mean, it's better than nothing.
Yeah.
I
Well, it's
mean,
one thing for like Yoda, you get Yoda's little ramshackle Jedi Academy there on Dagobah, and he's training an adult, somebody that's consented to be there and in his mud hut dojo. Here, it's legitimately a child, and so there all these requirements exist because they're taking charge of somebody that theoretically can't protect themselves. And you can say whatever you want to about Grogu's abilities on that front, his whatever his maturity and capabilities with the Force are. The fact is, he's still a child, and until the until season 2 he was the child. So Luke's got a significant burden there, and the only time we've seen, at least on screen, younglings in training, you had the Jedi Academy, or the Jedi Temple with tons of protections. Let's ignore for the fact that they sent a lot of those kids to war. That's a totally different conversation. However, pretty sure that somewhere within those halls, those Padawans, those younglings were having all these things checked. That building looks hardy. Looks like it would be earthquake resistant. if if Coruscant gets earthquakes, I don't know.
yeah, it's nuts, because this goes to the larger discussion we should have at the end about what Luke is doing,
Hmm.
because he seems to have forgotten a few things, and that just, it really smacks of, we're going to do this the super old fashioned way, because I'm reading the old Jedi text now. I'm learning how this should be done. I'm just going to double down on all the mistakes that caused the Jedi to fall the first time around. Let's lean into the mistakes. And that, building a rock temple for children, do you expect the Force to keep them warm? We will use the Force to keep the rain out all the time. Just seems really
You're like Yoda.
not.
Just have one little blanket for yourself in Dagobah's very hospitable climate. Part of me was hoping that Luke would just rent like a place in a strip mall, like Cobra Kai style, just hang a little banner now accepting students, and just start carving out a slice of the market.
You could, again, you could build something with a little more heft to it
Yeah.
to protect people from the elements. Because this goes to the issue of why the Mandalorian's visiting. He gave up Grogu during a firefight. And so there
Yeah.
was no discussion about, like, where are you taking him? Is he safe? Is he going to be protected? Like, those are legitimate questions to ask to do a health and safety inspection. So the issue of Mando wanting to make sure, like, hey, I knew nothing about giving up him to you, Luke Skywalker. I just want to make sure the place is code compliant.
It's a
That
little
he's not.
drafty in here.
Yeah, it's like him wanting to make sure the child is safe. It's a completely responsible thing to want to know. It's like, what the hell is going on here? To be fair, the inside of a tauntaun is warmer than where they're living right now. So there's some big issues there.
Well, and what's amazing, so obviously we're grafting on a bit here to Mando season 2, But I have to believe on some level. So Mando has this idea of what the Jedi are, perhaps knows a tiny bit about their history from what he's been able to gather. But Luke shows up in his X-wing. He slices through uh, every line of defense. The Dark Troopers aboard that light cruiser, and he's the knight in not so shiny armor there. But he hands Grogu off, and he's like, "This guy's got his stuff together. I'm sending Grogu off." On the right path here. And then he shows up and the temple's not even half built. There's nothing else on this planet. The droid that meets him goes to sleep immediately, and he's built a bench to wait on out of bamboo. Not probably what he envisioned during the handoff there, or during the sign up process for Grogu's boarding school.
Yeah, I think Mando's justified in going like, just want to make sure you're safe.
Right.
I was
Yeah.
charged with keeping him alive.
Yeah.
I put a lot on the line to do this.
I think he does need this chainmail based on what I'm seeing here.
I'm not comfortable. So
Yeah.
you seem to have magic energy swords that can cut people. I just got a chunk taken out of my leg. I speak from experience now.
Yeah.
That
Well,
hurts.
so there's a bit in the outline that we have here that about whether he's got building permits and whatnot that I think tie in with the line of discussion that we're having. But in reality, and this is different because this is an uninhabited world by all accounts. This looks to be like Agent Kloss, the planet from Rise of Skywalker, where Luke trains Leia, and then looks like the academy that you see Kylo destroys, this same Jedi Academy, at least by looks. So, in any event, uninhabited planet, probably different set of rules. But in the real world, when you want to open a building, when you want to build from the ground up a business of any type, there's a lot of red tape. Not the least of which is making sure that you're building it properly. You mentioned the earthquake requirements out there in California; those exist for a very good reason. They want to make sure that the locality, the municipality that you're building in, has a vested interest in making sure that you're not creating some ramshackle place that's going to endanger the citizens of that town, village, whatever you're living in. Likewise, here in Pennsylvania, and in many places, zoning is a big deal, right? So you can't you drive around, and if it seems like, hey, all the fast food places are in this one area of town, Walmart's in this area, you physically don't live across from a casino or something like that. That's because regulations are in place, laws are in place that prevent developers from just placing Jedi academies across the street from wherever. And so obviously that's not going to be in play here. This is an uninhabited planet. But if Luke is trying to establish a Jedi Academy really anywhere else, and we're using real world laws here, not everybody wants a Jedi Academy. Not everybody wants a daycare or a school in their backyard, and there are rules that go into all of that. And I don't know that those little ant droids stacking rocks are going to meet the international building codes that kind of guide construction across the U.S.
Side, the androids could be programmed to. So that
True.
raises an interesting construction defect question for faulty design or not, or faulty construction.
Yeah.
And if it's an android building a structure, that is fascinating to think about.
Yeah.
Now, this does look like an uninhabited planet. So therefore, it's not abandoned property, but it's in the category of nobody owns it. So finding an open space and going, this is pretty, we're going to build here. The river's nearby, we'll have portable water. We're not in a floodplain. All of this looks good. That's legit for him to do. I get that and don't have a problem with it. But the bigger issue of, like, we have zoning for a reason. Zoning laws exist so you don't end up with the elementary school across from the strip club. Like those, that was a thing. So we have laws to make sure that nothing weird lands in the same place. This is
I'm just picturing in the townships that are around me, if you submitted an application for Jedi Academy, the kind of people that would come out to the zoning meeting they'll object about anything. You try to build a store where free gold bars get handed out, and people will come out and be like, not my backyard, we're not going to have that. But people get riled up over all sorts of stuff. I think Luke would have a tough go of it, maybe surprisingly so in the real world.
most likely, which is why going to an undiscovered place, it's like
Yes.
nobody's here. This is Garden of Eden type situation. We're in. We're gonna
Imperials, Inquisitors, angry citizens who don't want your Jedi school near them, all on the same playing field of threats.
All right, so we now have Luke in action with Grogu. There's a lot here. So from one level of just care of the child, Luke does not let Grogu eat a live frog. So gold star for basic parenting and childcare 101. You don't get to.
Gotta watch that salmonella.
Oh, golly. It's just, I don't know if this is supposed to mean that the Jedi are vegetarians or if they have an alternate food production source, kind of like a replicator type situation. But whatever it is, you're not going to snack on live frogs. So, but we don't get a good sense of how he's feeding the kid. We see Luke using the Force for Grogu to keep up on their walk, and it was hysterical to see. It's a weird thing to see because he's not carrying the child, but he is using the Force to help him keep up.
I like that he won't slow down he could easily slow up his pace, but he doesn't do that. He just shuffles him along.
Is he thinking
being the master has its privileges, I guess?
Was he thinking like, okay, this was rough when Yoda was my teacher, so I'm just going to do things differently?
I hated walking slow everywhere, but he didn't give me an option.
We're not doing it this time. So, and I'm not going to carry you everywhere. We have Luke ask for Grogu's consent about memories. Would you like to remember? And apparently the answer has to be an uncommunicated verbal yes. And we get one of the best flashbacks of clone troopers in live action armor that doesn't look computer generated. In Order 66 being carried out, which is now the fifth time we've seen it. I've lost track.
Yeah, it still hits me every time I think I'm over Order 66. I'm not. This was, I imagine, 100% as emotional for me as it was for Grogu, having lived through it. I'm sure that we're on the same level there, but I wasn't sure how to feel about this. I didn't know. It's not clear that Luke speaks toddler, and so he just sort of proceeds and kind of tears open a pretty painful memory there for Grogu.
It's like telepathy. How Ahsoka got Grogu's name was through their. So I think it's something along those lines of it's a nonverbal communication that's using the Force to understand what the toddler wants.
Sure.
But it's wild.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the law of gifts, which, well, no, let's hold off on that. Let's talk about the training remote and child endangerment. And there's a lot of child endangerment issues here. So this is California's law for child endangerment, and there are a bunch of clauses with it. And it's, for those who want to go look it up, it's California Penal Code Section 273A. Any person who, under circumstances or conditions likely to produce great bodily harm or death, willfully causes or permits any child to suffer, or inflicts thereupon unjustifiable pain or mental suffering, or having the care or custody of any child, willfully causes or permits the person or health of that child to be injured, or willfully causes or permits that child to be placed in a situation where his or her person or health is endangered, shall be punished in a county jail not exceeding 1 year, or the state prison for 2, 4, or 6 years. And the magic language here is permits any child to suffer. And we have a bunch of different ways that could come into play, but allowing what's the training remote setting at?
It knocks him off his feet the first time around. It seems like he's got that cranked up a little high.
So I second time I watched this, it was doing the share screen with a friend, and it was her first time watching it. And she made the comment as soon as the training ball comes out and he's kind of playing with it, she went, "Oh, you like that now?"
Yeah, you're gonna have a different opinion here momentarily.
Yeah, give about 10 seconds there, little guy. And this is that weird reaction of like letting kids play, football. Something where you can end up with a concussion. And there has to be a way to learn how to use the Force, or how to, learning how to use a lightsaber requires using a lightsaber at some point. When you get past the stick, you move to the actual energy sword. This just kind of struck me as, is this a good idea? Like, what's it? It's like a shock collar with a dog, except you're doing it with a toddler. It just screams, it's a little much, and it might raise issues if a boarding school actually taught kids hand-eye coordination by shooting a blaster at them. It really seems like a bad idea. But we get to see him jump around, and it looks way cooler than anything that we saw in Attack of the Clones with Yoda fighting Count Dooku. So,
very Yoda-esque. But he doesn't tell Grogu what's coming. Obviously, he can't. He doesn't. That's sort of the point of it. But there's no, you go play football, and you've got your parents signing you up and agreeing for you to participate as a minor, and there's some level of buy-in. The coach is going to educate you on what's going to happen. You're not just going to walk out in your pads and immediately get hit, like blindsided, or shot with a blaster. And so, like, we've seen these training remotes in the past. They hurt, but they hurt for a point, but they don't kill. They don't seriously or permanently injure you. But still, it clearly catches Grogu by surprise and gets him enough that he starts jumping really, really quickly. He gets the hang of it and doesn't want to get hit again for obvious reasons. And it's enough of a shock the first time around that it prompts him to just destroy the thing. It was like my favorite scene in the whole episode, where he just like crushes it and sinks it in the little pond. And Luke's just like, yeah, okay. I understand.
Luke does get positive reinforcement when Grogu's jumping. Very good. Very good. Like he compliments the child. We'll need to remember these factors for the question of giving a kid a lightsaber. So we have the visit to Freetown, and this is more or less in foreign policy, but the pitch is from Mando to Cobb. You're all part of the same planet. This isn't city folk problems, and it's a wonderful comparison to isolationism. Isolationism has been one of the default foreign policies of the United States, and it comes in different veins of, we're just not going to get involved. That's one version that was throughout most of the 19th century up until the Spanish-American War. We just didn't want to do anything. You then get to the interwar period, post-World War I, where we really didn't want to have that happen again. but we did build up a fair amount of military forces, but we didn't advance it. So,
Right.
for example, and after President Hoover won election, and there was the long period up until March 4 where he would take over from Coolidge, he went on a tour on a U.S. battleship of South America. So it was part trying to promote good neighbor, but our way of showing that we were not wanting to get entangled with foreign powers was literal gunboat diplomacy,
Yeah.
and showing that we had the strength to crush whoever wanted to come at us. That only works if you keep up the military. Big problem there, as we later learned.
Yeah.
When World War II started, the Germans were like 25 years ahead of us militarily, so we had a fair amount of catch up to do quickly. That said, waiting for a problem to come to your doorstep is the wrong way to handle the problem. We'll let you get overrun with the drug dealers before we deal with the problem that we could all work together on and have enough strength and numbers to oust this foreign power that's trying to turn us into a drug den.
Yeah. Well, and look no further than Ukraine right now, and we don't need to divert down that path fully, but I think there are some very similar parallels in this situation where we're dealing with crime families and drug running here, but you've got Boba needing allies, but facing down a pretty sizable force and trying to rally a coalition to his cause, and trying to convince them of the reasons to back him, and not let I guess what would be the status quo at this point, but the dominant force sort of take run of things. And unfortunately, before they can really make a decision, we get a visitor out there to Mos Pelgo who has some other thoughts. Um,
This was so. How quickly did it take you to realize it was Cad Bane?
the hat, I was like, it's a little small based on what we've seen in the Clone Wars, and I'm like looking down at his ankles to see if he's got the little ankle rockets that he uses in the Clone Wars. But yeah, as soon as you see him sort of out of the hazy distance, it was one of those moments. I was up off the couch, just kind of hovering right in front of my TV, like, oh, they didn't. They did though.
Yeah, it was the first scene from a distance. I was like, my God, that's Cad Bane.
Yeah,
They did it. They've actually done it.
right.
And he is way more terrifying than in the animated series.
Oh yeah.
There were those complaining, oh, he doesn't look the same. It's like, it's been 30 years. He's probably going to not be as bright a blue as he was during the Clone Wars, because 30 years went by.
Yeah.
So let
It's a
him
TV
age.
show. Lots of stuff looks different than in the cartoons.
But those eyes, they
Yeah.
so terrifying, and malice. Just you can tell he's sinister, and it's in the best Western sense.
Yeah.
And if that deputy hadn't gotten in the way, I think Cobb could have taken him,
Yeah.
but that he did not help the situation.
No.
So yeah, but again, it's isolationism. The problem comes to your front door, and now you're
Yeah.
in a different world of hurt.
Yeah. What's interesting here, so we talk about self-defense here a lot, and I think maybe in a vacuum we could debate self-defense or whatever, but there's always this aspect to it that we end up discussing in Star Wars a lot, which is whether somebody was the initial aggressor, and whether they can make use of that self-defense argument. That doesn't work with the police, right? If I think in certain circumstances it can. I think we've seen in recent history and some of the more shameful examples of police brutality and whatnot, it becomes an open question. Here, though, we don't have an argument for Cobb Vanth where he can say, well, the deputy came out and his hand was dancing on his 6-shooter, I had to defend myself and shoot the sheriff and shoot the deputy. It doesn't work for Cobb Vanth in this scenario. So he rolled up, he's leveling not so veiled threats about the safety of the citizens they're there to protect. And he's got his hand hovering over his own gun. So both Vanth and his deputy there are absolutely right to move into position. Right, maybe not smart to do that. I think that look that Cobb Vanth gives to his deputy when he comes out and defies his order to stay inside was just chef's kiss. It was perfect. And yeah, he really gave no mercy. I hope Cobb Vanth lived. He gave no mercy to that deputy, though. He about blasted him into the Star Trek universe.
Yeah. So here's my gut feeling, because of the love of Westerns, that Cobb does have some body armor under the shirt.
Mm-hmm.
So again, in a Clint Eastwood style, I'm not saying
Yeah.
it's storefront, but a guy who got used to wearing body armor probably has something underneath the shirt.
Yeah.
So he got hit. He does need medical care, but he either, again, one shot and either survives, or had some form of Kevlar that at least gives him a fighting chance.
Right.
But Cad Bane made an example of the deputy. It's like 5 shots and then walks away, giving the town an ultimatum. That sort of thing is done in order to instill fear so people don't mess with the syndicate. On the flip side, I have a feeling that's just going to rally everyone to the cause. So, but we'll see. We shall see. Which then brings us to the bombing of the sanctuary. This reminded me of the very beginning of the Untouchables. Mm-hmm. For those who don't remember, we have one of Al Capone's henchmen go in, leave a briefcase at a bar, restaurant, store, and a little girl picks it up and, in the front of the store says, "Mister, you forgot your suitcase," and then blows up. That scene where the droid says, "You forgot your," what are they called? Camtana. Yeah. The look on Jennifer Beals' face as soon as that said, she knows what's about to happen. Yeah. That expression was priceless. Just so well done.
Hope she lived as well. I don't want to see her gone. Garza Fwip can stay around as far as I'm concerned.
She should. It's, again, there's a back to tank. I mean, we're at this point, both Cobb and her probably need it, and hopefully Max survived. But there's it was at her back, and she was probably within 10 feet of it. And we don't know.
Like Darth Maul got chopped in half, so I don't want to hear that somebody can't survive something in Star Wars. Yes. Filoni, you know what needs to happen. I'll take Max Rebo. If Max Rebo wasn't there and was spared, then okay. If Garza Fwip has to die, then okay. As long as Max can live.
Glad Max was so fast. Yeah, that would be that would be hysterical. We've never seen him move. So
yeah. I don't think Ortolans have legs, so that would make it real complicated for him to get away from a blast radius.
Oh boy, howdy. But this just highlights that we have lots of laws about firebombing restaurants. And there's no shortage of, this is extremely illegal. You don't blow things up. What is also interesting is how some states have interpreted this, this prohibition with other laws that say like, hey, you can't do this. And in one case, it was from April 6, 1968, and with riots in Baltimore. This is 2 days after Dr. Martin Luther King was assassinated, so I don't know if they're related or not. Mm-hmm. But so there was a firebomb at a restaurant We have a victim who ends up trapped inside of the building and dies of carbon monoxide poisoning. So we have the defendant who's arrested for this, and he gets hit with 2 different charges against him and convicted of both, for the firebombing and then for the decedent's death, and that they were separate. So they get stacked on top of each other for sentencing purposes. You know, they're not running concurrently. They're stacked on top of each other, and neither is a lesser offense. They don't merge together. And in this case, for anyone who died, they would go, here's the first charge of, you did the firebombing, and now we're going to get you for anyone who died in the sanctuary as well. So it's interesting. And
well, what's oh, go ahead.
No, you first.
No, I was going to say there's another interesting angle to it, which is not strictly legal, but sort of, I would say, tangentially related. I don't. Star Wars doesn't get into the insurance business much, but terrorism insurance was something that really kind of the sea changed on it after the 9/11 attacks happened. And I wonder, there was somebody on my Twitter feed that earlier in the week after the episode dropped asked whether it would make sense that the government, the New Republic, would have any sort of like terrorist insurance program. So here we have real world. It's the Terrorism Risk Insurance Act, TRIA. Basically, in a nutshell, rolls out following the 9/11 attacks, and requires that insurance companies offer this sort of policy. Doesn't require insureds to purchase it, but it has to be commercially available. The thinking from the government was that 9/11 was such a huge expense to the insurance industry that premiums would go through the roof. It would become prohibitively expensive to buy in any kind of commercial insurance against terrorist acts, and because it could be such a catastrophic loss, that sort of thing. This sort of leveled the playing field. The TRIA has been renewed. It was initially like a 3-year program, renewed most recently in 2019, and the current iteration sunsets in like 2026, 27, somewhere in there. I thought it was a very interesting point in light of this scene, particularly because of all the talk about and the limited reach of the New Republic government. We see here they have a couple, not in this episode, but in Chapter 5, they only have a couple X-Wings in orbit. Clearly, the New Republic doesn't reach all the way out to Tatooine in any meaningful way. Having this sort of program available to businesses out in the galaxy could be a way of upping their reach, enhancing their legitimacy as a government. It would be a popular measure for far-flung business owners like Garza Fwip, who might be able to get some protection from some coverage like this. That all it costs the New Republic is credits, maybe a lot of them, but it would clearly be a popular program that in this case Garza Fwip might be completely without coverage for a terrorist type act like this one with the Pikes. And law enforcement, I think we're going to see some kind of specialized law enforcement next week from it's projecting from Boba's palace. But in the absence of that, what's her recourse? What is she able to, short of suing the Pikes or something, assuming she survived, like many businesses, what are you going to sue Al Qaeda and hope that you come out with anything other than a judgment? There needs to be something real, something tangible that businesses can recover from an act like this from. So I thought it was a fascinating, great question. I won't take credit for the idea for coming up with it, but I think it would make a lot of sense if something like that existed in the galaxy at this point in history.
Yeah, that is very profound and thought out, because it's like FEMA steps in at some point. So it's a different creature, but the insurance coverage side of it, and I work at a firm that does a lot of insurance coverage,
Mhm.
so that's something I'll ping my boss for his thoughts on. Hey,
Yeah.
man, what do you think? So, well, let's get to gifts, and we can pontificate on Luke doubling down on all the things that caused the Jedi to fall apart to begin with. So, a gift is a voluntary transfer of property without consideration or compensation. And that's from the Ballotines Law Dictionary from 1930, and it's cited in a Texas case from 2003. And it's relevant because Mando goes to find Grogu to check up on him and to say, "You have foundling heritage. Here's something to keep you safe." It's a gift. Luke intercedes and
Mhm.
says, "You can have this gift from your friend the Mandalorian, but if you take it, you're out of the school. Or you can stay and you get Yoda's lightsaber." There's a lot wrong with this because I don't think Luke is in the position to give ultimatums like that. That if you accept this gift, you're out.
Mhm.
That seems and building upon the attachment. All of Luke is about attachments. He knew when his friends were going to be hurt. He's able
Mhm.
to redeem Vader because of attachment. I'm willing to sacrifice myself for my dad. Then my dad was willing to sacrifice himself to save me. That wasn't done just because. That's because there's an attachment. And we call it love,
Mhm.
call it what, there's a lot of ways that can be expressed. But the idea that Jedi are nihilistic in nature and are just we'll let the world burn because we don't believe in attachment because that can lead us to the dark side seems stupid. This seems like a really stupid
Right.
philosophy. I don't know if it's just leftover from the prequels and Filoni and Favreau didn't know how to write their way out of it, but it's really dumb because even thinking back to the original Star Wars, we have Obi-Wan say to Luke, "This is your father's lightsaber." And he accepts it. So again,
Yeah.
the idea of like no attachment from family members or anyone who gave a damn about you seems to be leaning in for all the ways that cause people to go to the dark side or go like, "This seems dumb. I'm not staying here."
Yeah. Well,
This
I think Luke, and this isn't legalistic, but I think Luke is doing the best he can while knowing nothing about what he's doing. I mean, strip it down to its roots, and Luke had at best a few weeks. We don't know how much time precisely passed in Empire, but a few weeks with Yoda where he trained on Dagobah and then ran off and chased his own attachments. And I think Luke is very cognizant of the fact that he came really, really close for all the good that his attachment to his father did, saving Darth Vader, bringing Anakin back to the light side, restoring balance in that way. Uh, he realized I mean, he was a saber strike away from falling to the dark side over that same attachment. And so he knows just how much trouble it can be because he's walked that path before. So it's a little bit of a cautionary tale because of his own experience. But also, people are like, well, I've seen some commentary on the episode. Well, it's like he's just doing everything Yoda did. Yeah, he is because that's all he knows. Obi-Wan's not manifesting himself there to give him pointers. Maybe he has some of the Jedi texts, but I suspect they're not written like, train the next generation of Jedi for dummies type deal. And so he's just doing the best he can with the information that he has. And I guarantee you, if folks out there, if you've played any kind of sport, or heck, if you've learned lessons from your parents, they're replicating what they know based on their own experience, whether it's on a playing field, the football field, to use the example we were using earlier. A football coach is teaching oftentimes in the same way that he or she was taught. I parent the same way that I drew examples from my parents. Luke's just trying to do the best that he can here. Um, in terms of like withholding the gift, I it brought me back sort of to a moment of like when I was in basic training in the Army, and while family members that I had wanted to send me all sorts of gifts that I requested, cookies, more cookies, um, even more cookies or candy, whatever. I wasn't allowed, even though they had given it to me, they had sent it to me. Their full intent, as the grantor of this gift, was that I get it and enjoy whatever it was. But that's not the rule of U.S. Army basic training. Many schools, many boarding schools are the same way. They've got very strict rules about contraband and whatnot. And so it was almost like, seeing it through that lens, it was almost like Luke was intercepting contraband. Ahsoka plays the mediary and sort of tries to talk Din Djarin down. And there's this moment where Ahsoka hands him the little tied up handkerchief or whatever it is, and you just see Luke's face. It was like this perfect reaction where he's like, "Oh, geez, this is the last I don't know what I'm doing, but this whole attachment thing is the last thing that I want to be dealing with now." And so he sort of acts like a headmaster and lays the choices out for him.
I understand that. But there's also the cultural heritage side of things.
True. Yeah.
And this isn't cookies. This is,
That's
hey,
true.
have you ever lost a limb to a lightsaber? Do you know how dangerous those things are?
Yeah.
And he's a toddler. And
Right.
remember the killer robots that you cut through? Kids die,
Yeah.
so, and this is part of his heritage now. So and I don't see it as an either or. Like, he's a foundling, maybe he's a Padawan. How about both? You can be
Yeah.
both. And it's like there's a precedent for having a Mandalorian Jedi before.
Yeah.
So why not like lean into that? And again, this is my hope if they find the third way. It's like, hey, my philosophy has some holes that really don't add up. Yours has some holes that don't add up. Why don't we learn from that and not repeat the things? Like, like there's the no attachments, mindset doesn't mean that Jedi are celibate. That just means that it's like, oh, sex without consequences. It's like, that's really, it's just a weird philosophy that is prone to failure because it doesn't acknowledge reality. And it also highlights just this weird development in Star Wars where Jedi had a full-blown academy and temple. They would all gather together. That's technically attachments. Like, they're all on the same team together.
Yeah. Look no further than Anakin and Obi-Wan.
Yeah. So it doesn't. And Luke is only, like his examples are very small, but you think he would go like, this seemed problematic. This caused my dad to go bad and caused literally everyone to get shot, with like the exception of 3 or 4 people. Maybe we shouldn't repeat this. Maybe we should learn from this and not repeat the mistakes of the past.
Which just takes them another 20 or so years to learn this lesson.
So I have another friend he's a cosplayer. He cosplays as Luke. And also Anakin, really understands the character. And his comments, we'll see if he's right, but he took the position that Grogu will choose neither. And Luke has to accept Ben Solo at some point, who's probably a year old at this point. I mean,
Yeah.
we're right around. This is shortly after Jakku.
Mm-hmm.
If it's only been 5 years, and 5 years is
Yes, it's been about 4 from Jakku. Yeah, so he's still pretty young.
yeah. So well, it's 5 years after Return of the Jedi. So Jakku is how long after Return of the Jedi?
A year.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we been super young for
Yeah.
toddler age. Accepting his nephew is accepting an attachment.
Yeah.
So he has to be willing to do that. So what's the decision point where it's like, maybe it's okay to have some attachments. I still care about my sister. I'm not going to ignore her.
Yeah.
I worry about Han. I worry about Chewie. I have my friends. Like it doesn't, it just seems like a really bizarre story point that's left over from decision points Lucas wrote into the prequels that are really dumb storytelling factors.
I do think it sets it puts into better relief Luke's ultimate decision to walk away from the order, at least temporarily, and to abandon things and go to Octo, uh, because he is trying to do the right thing. Yet he's never really. I don't think he's ever really reflected on the order or any of the problem. He never really. I don't think he knows the history fully of the fall of the order and the full extent of what his father did and whatnot, or the circumstances that led to it. The Jedi Order is just this mythical thing that has been heaped on his shoulders to reinstate. And really, it's not until the ultimate failure with Ben Solo that he has any time to reflect on that. And then he goes to the extreme and just abandons it all and walks away from the entire galaxy. And so to me, I haven't watched The Last Jedi since I've seen these episodes, but I'll go back and perhaps look at that movie, look at Rise of Skywalker and his sort of re-embrace of things with Rey, maybe through a different light. And I like that. I agree with you in terms of the idiocy of the attachment piece, this sort of binary view of the galaxy, for all the subtleties and wisdom that the Jedi bring to things. It's like, they just consistently shoot themselves in the foot with that sort of mentality. But
He tells Grogu the galaxy is a dangerous place, and I will teach you to protect yourself. What happened to being the guardians of peace and justice? If you're going to say the galaxy can be a dangerous place, which is why we protect life. You think he's the lessons he's learned? I don't know what Jedi books he's had handy. Really send a crappy message to the toddler.
I feel like Grogu would be like, Luke, I was there when the order fell. Like, you're telling me all these great. I saw some great Jedi. A lot of them die that day in the temple. So I get what you're trying to say, but peace. I'm taking the armor. I'm gonna go do some Mando things. The crazy thing with how he ages is that in 60, 70 years after Luke is gone, he can come back to it, and he's effectively a teenager at that point and be like, okay, I'm ready to do the whole Jedi thing now. Let's go.
Yeah, it's just, again, and telling that to a toddler is just really dumb. And to offer the toddler a lightsaber, like he can't even hold it yet. Now there's so in the promo for this we said, can you give the toddler a lightsaber? I'm going to say no. I'm just going to flat out and say no. And I remember
you're telling me that I can't hand my 3-year-old a supercharged plasma blade powered by a kyber crystal. You're telling me that?
Yeah. So for a warm up, give the youngest an axe and see how quickly that goes south.
Very reasonable.
Yeah, there was I was having a discussion several years ago with one of the risk managers from the Boy Scouts of America at the national office, and he was sharing like one of the horror story moments where somebody reached out and said, like, hey, could we have Cub Scouts throw tomahawks? And which he said, no, No, we will not be doing that. You
No
can't.
badge for that?
No, for scouts, BSA, yes, that's an age appropriate
Yeah.
activity. And there's a lot of adult supervision that goes in. This is how you do it, but we're not going to have Cub Scouts do it. I think it's comparable to giving a toddler a broadsword. It's like,
Yeah.
hey, dude, or a katana. Do you want to learn how to use this katana? It's like time and place. We're going to start with a bamboo one. We're going to like baby step our way up
Yeah.
to this.
Pool noodle. I don't know.
Yeah, but again, just looking at the rules on child endangerment, permit to cause harm. Yeah, we're there. Luke wears a black glove for a reason. So that just seems really irresponsible, and it just seems like a dumb interpretation of the law, or excuse me, of the Jedi Code, compared to the Armorer's dumb interpretations of what she thinks the Mandalorian creed is.
Yeah.
Rant over. It just. See, I'm a Lutheran, so I'm all for a reformation for either of these organizations in Star Wars because they clearly need some help to go, hey, maybe we should let the priests marry.
Yeah.
Maybe
Well,
that's
look,
not a bad thing.
as a converted Catholic, I belong to an organization that has had a few problems with doctrine. A few.
Oh boy, yeah. There's
Yeah.
but again, like even they had, was it the second canon in the 1970s, like where they, again, reforms happen when they realize
Yeah.
maybe this wasn't the best plan. Maybe we should update. And Pope Francis has done well with that, and Luke needs to take a few lessons from Francis on this, or Martin Luther or Calvin, pick one, and go, maybe we need to do some updates to the Jedi texts.
Yeah. He's got to have a little more Qui-Gon in him, a little more defiance. Yoda's way is not the way. It's okay. Branch off.
It allowed the Jedi to fall. So why repeat a failure point? Learn from it. So that's my 2 cents on the binary choice that Grogu's giving. He can be both things. It's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And caring about people and willing to fight for others isn't a bad thing. It's why those who go to war are willing to sacrifice themselves so others may live. So this, again, it just seems like dumb storytelling left over from the prequels. That's my humble opinion. But anyway, so next week we'll probably go Saturday because of that Super Bowl.
Speaking of football,
yes. Hopefully we get some Star Wars trailers for one of the TV shows.
Kenobi is starting on May 4th, right? That's the word.
So not official. So there was a Reddit thread that somebody tweeted out saying Kenobi was supposed to start in May. And if it starts May 4th, that would make a lot of sense just from Kenobi saying, may the force be with you. It would be very Kisme. And if they do that, something beautiful will happen for nerds.
Yeah.
And that's Kenobi starts May 4th. Then Star Trek Strange New World starts May 5th. Meaning people like me have a lot to celebrate over that couple-day period. So that would be super cool if both happen that way. So, but if we see a preview, that'd be pretty neat. So hope springs eternal. What else could we might see Star Wars related on Super Bowl Sunday? Any hopes?
Well, if indeed Obi-Wan is starting in May, then maybe we get a little Kenobi trailer. So far, we've only had the behind the scenes sizzle reel that's up on Disney Plus. That's my hope. in production on Mando season 3, so I don't think they're gonna have like maybe we'll get a post-credit scene, but I don't know that we'll get much more. But if you give me a Kenobi trailer, I'll be happy as a clam. And it's wild to
Andor.
think that we would get. Yeah, I would take Andor. I think Andor is probably going to be more like late Q3, Q4, or early, like very, very early Q4, so that it doesn't run right up on Mando season 3, assuming that comes back in December.
Yeah, they literally can do one of these a quarter this year, which is the most
That's wild.
Star Wars content we've ever had in our lifetimes.
Yeah, yeah,
And I'm all on board for it. And it raises, I mean, if they do it, we'll have a Star Wars series during Celebration.
yeah. That's great. We will literally be watching, and well, if May 4th holds, you could be going to watch a new episode the day of one of the big days at the con, which is crazy to think about.
I am so giddy at that. It's not funny. It's, hotels are booked, panel submissions done. We have our tickets. We're good to go.
Yeah.
And whether we have mask requirements or not, we'll roll with that. But it's
This is true.
I'm okay with it. I mean, there's there were articles about the subvariant from Omicron that sound concerning. So yeah, masks are going to be a way of life for a while, and again, that's okay.
We'll make it work.
Yeah, we'll make it work. We'll celebrate together and have a good time, and we'll have, it'll be fun.
Yeah.
So with that, the only criticism I have about the show is I want more Boba Fett, which is not something I thought I would ever say. But this series has been a wonderful character study of Boba Fett. Then we got a deep character study of Mando, Grogu, and Luke.
Right.
Who saw that coming?
Yeah. This deep into the season.
What a wonderful time to be a Star Wars fan.
Yeah. Yeah.
So. Well, listen, everyone, thanks for tuning in. For those who were live, thanks for being here. For those who are listening on the recording, wherever you listen, please leave a review. We super appreciate that. Tweet at us questions, because again, there's lots of good stuff with a crime syndicate story and bounty hunters doing murder for hire, and there's a lot here. There's so much here. So with that, everyone, stay safe, stay healthy, and stay geeky. Take care.